All right, guys, a word of caution. This was an ugly job just due to rust. As you could see, the dust shield is totally gone on one side where it wasn't on the other. I had to replace the parking brake cables because they were frozen, and all the parking brake hardware. And while I was at it, I just put in new rotors and pads. But it fought me tooth and nail with all the rust I had. A lot of bolts for the cables were really rusted on pretty good. And just the whole job took me a lot longer because I live in the Rust Belt. Enjoy the video. Please give us a thumbs up as you go along. And I'll start from the beginning. And also I will take parts of this video and split it up as to how to do brakes, how to change a cable, and so on for future reference. Sit back and enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to Just Be Handy. Today I'm going to change out the rear wheel bearings on the Toyota Highlander, and this is the same process for a lot of the front wheel drive Toyotas with the V6 and disc brake rear brakes. From 2003 all the way to 2010 or even now, but your part numbers may be different, so please check. They provided the TRQ. Now these are made in China, but they're standing behind them with a lifetime warranty, and here you could see the numbers for them. The dust covers on my vehicle are rotted out, so I'm going to change the dust covers, and these were the best solution I found on Rock Auto, and we'll see those later. And since I'm in there that far, I decided to go with the RAYBESTOS rear rotors and the AKEBONO rear brake pads. They're made in the US, real good quality. I really like the AKEBONO brand. You'll need some brake parts cleaner. I like to use cleanse oil. It's really good because it cleans and protects. So I'll have brake cables, things like that along the way that I'll need to do. Then brake grease and some anti-seize for putting the hubs into the dust cover. Okay, before you get started, make sure that you have the transmission in park and that you have chucks on either side of a front wheel. I'm using my homemade ramps here to make sure that the front wheel is secure and the vehicle won't roll back and forth. And then make sure that the vehicle is up properly. And I also use the center jack as well in the center point here for the front wheel drive to make sure that there's no issues with the vehicle going down. So 3 points in the rear for support. Hard to diagnose which bearing is bad when you have it up in the air. So one trick I learned from the car care nut is to grab onto the spring of the strut and then spin the tire. What you hear is some brake rubbing, but you do feel the bearing in the coil when you spin it. So when I do that to the other side, I do hear some brake drag, but I don't feel the bearing vibrating up to the strut. So that was a good tip from the car care nut. You can definitely check out his video. Another thing I like to do for extra safety, guys, is put the tires underneath the car in case the jack slips out or something. It's better to crush a tire rather than a leg. So I did that for both sides. All right, now you can see there's no dust shield on this side. It rotted out from all the rust we have here and so on from the northern areas. And at the other side there is a dust shield. All right, next we'll get the caliper off. These are 14 millimeter bolts, and I like to use a breaker bar first. These are only supposed to be about 25 foot-pounds, and they're a little bit tighter. This one's loose, okay. This one. These pins could use a good cleaning, and then we'll put them back on. And now it's good to hang this caliper from the strut to keep it out of the way. So next we have to remove these two carrier bolts, and you can see there's a lot of rust here, so you need to definitely use a breaker bar, and these are 17 millimeter. Alright guys, I was able to remove the two bolts in the back. Again, they were 17 millimeter. Get one of these. There we go. And it's off. And you can see there's still quite a bit of brake life left, but since I'm in here, I might as well just do it right. Put all new parts, clean everything up. These parts have seen a lot of salt spray, and they're getting old. Now we'll take off this cover. There we go. And this is the nice part about the Highlander's rear bearing. These holes you could line up with the hub screws or bolts and then take them off. Yep, they're 17 millimeter, and you can see they fit a socket really well, and then I'll get my air gun and go into it. You don't have to take off the brakes if you have a good heat dust shield, but as you can see, this dust shield rotted out and rattled away, and once I get those bolts off, everything might come out, the dust shield, the brakes, everything. So okay, next I took pictures of everything, how these springs are set, how the arm in the back is hooked up to the cable back there for the parking brake, where the pins are, and then this bar here, how the adjuster is set at the bottom. So all those things have to be taken into account when you before you remove any of this. And you could see like the one spring to the rear is in front of the spring to the facing the front of the vehicle. Make note of those types of things before you take this apart. Do it with these two types of pliers. You have this one which you can open up a little bit and grab the cap a little bit better, and then you have this one for pulling springs a bit better. And it's a lot easier to do sometimes with these types of tools. You could use this flat head, but you gotta push on the pin in the back to be able to rotate, pull out. And you can see there's a little tab here that goes into here. Keep track of that, maybe take pictures if you want to go along. Also put the parts that you take off, if they're to the rear, put them to the rear. If they go to the front, put them to the front, so you remember how things go. And then in the center, you just kind of put them back that way. Took it off. And then the next thing that needs to really come off is the parking brake, because that will make life a lot easier to take that off. And that is a little cradle end cap, so we'll have to try and pull that up and through there. Alright guys, the way I got this off was I got a pair of pliers, small pliers. I pulled the spring back and over. And once I got the spring over this area, I took a screwdriver and just pushed it out and it came out. Sorry I couldn't grab that on video, but I just didn't want you to see me struggling with it too far. Also, I took out the two little 10 millimeter bolts so I could get the cable more loose, and sprayed it with this cleanse oil so that everything was softer and more malleable. It made the spring move. Everything moved really easy. So now we could take this cable out, and you could see it needs cleaning. Get this hub out, and then there's enough slack here, then I can see, once I pull it forward, I can see better as to what is going on with that cable cover, and then get that off. But right now I'm just having a hard time getting at it. So I'm going to pull this out. Again, these are 17 millimeter. There we go. And I'll get my trusty for the rusty impact here. Alright guys, I'm having trouble getting it out, so I'm going to whack it with a mallet. There we go. And there's the cable, and there's the little pin. So now I just need my little screwdriver to undo that. Alright, we finally got it going there. There's the old piece. Look at how rusted that is. As you can see, oh, it does hang up. So it's good to get this out of here. Now we need to clean everything out. And here you can see all the rust over the years. That's all got to get cleaned up. We'll use brake parts cleaner and wire brush or a 3M thing on the end of a drill. Clean it all up. I ended up having to do a lot of work to clean this up. There was some surface rust not causing this to be flat, and then when you put the new bearing in, if you can't clamp on properly, it may be a little off and then cause you some issues with the bearing. So landing disc on here for this angle grinder, and it's a 60 grit, and I just went along real light. I didn't want to put it too far and then have it change the profile. And then for the interior, I used like a 3M material disc here, and I just went in and cleaned all that, and just used some brake parts cleaner to wash everything down. This is pretty good stuff. So once you get it this clean, then you could start putting stuff back. Alright guys, here's the one from the other side. As you notice, there is a dust shield, but look at it's starting to go. Another thing that happened and why the bearing is shot is water sits in that cavity and it erodes it. And you could see water was getting into here. This the sensor broke off while I was trying to take this out, but you could see the damage done here, and that's what made the bearing. I can barely turn it now. There it is. You could hear it howling. And it was compromised basically because of rust. I know Toyota does good stuff and it lasted, but you can't beat Mother Nature and rust. So just something to be aware of is that you will get moisture to stay in this pocket here, and they do have a little drain, but when you have snow and ice and then expansion contraction, and with salt water, it will erode on that, and good luck trying to save it. So that's really what caused this one to go bad. And you could really hear this bearing howl when you're going down the road. And again, this dust shield is not even worth saving, so that's why I went and got the new dust shields. I was inspecting the new dust covers. They have some dings where the paint came off, and I'm just going to hit them with a caliper paint and get them ready so that I can avoid rust as much as possible. I got this information from the library, local library, basically online. They have the auto repair source by Motor Driven, and it says that these bolts here go in at 59 foot-pounds. Now, like I said, I cleaned everything, got this surface clean. You can see the little hole here for where the sensor goes, and that helps you identify which one to put in. So this is wider up here, smaller down here with the sensor on this side, so when you put it in, it will go in this way. So this will go in, and then I need this plate to be behind here. So first, this plate, and then this rides in here, and then you drive the bolts in. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to put anti-seize here, anti-seize on this face, and then anti-seize on this face here as well before putting everything together. And the anti-seize I'm using is a copper type. It's good for the higher temps, and I'm only doing it here. I don't want to close off that drain that you can see in this area here, so don't put too much where it will close off the drain. We'll put a little bit on this face, and that'll help get everything to come apart a lot easier next time. Alright, and then we'll put, and the way to pick this plate out is, we know that the parking brake comes through here, so that will face towards where the parking brake is. So we have some on the back, we're going to put some on the front here. And then also some in this area. This not only helps to keep things loose, but also it helps to seal out water if water is trying to intrude into here. So I'm going to take one of the bolts too and keep it handy, so when I put this up, it will just all go together. There we go. So just start it out by hand. And that'll help hold everything in place. And then I'm just going to tighten them up. Alright, I got the impact set at the lowest setting so I can torque them when needed. Alright, so now we torque them to 60 foot-pounds. Okay, that one's torqued. That one. Alright, so those are all torqued to 60 foot-pounds, and you can see it's on. That plate's to the back. For most of you, this is where you may sign off, so please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. What I'm going to continue with is putting on the parking brake setup and then the brakes themselves. So please stay with me if you're wanting to see some of that. but we're getting there. For most of you, you were probably able to move the parking brake stuff apart because you still had a good dust shield, and we're able to take those bolts off and get this all off. But for me, I have quite a bit to go yet. This kit is from Napa. I had to run to the local dealer. It's 3171, and it is all the springs that you need, and pins and the adjusters. You could use some of the older parts if you choose to, but I know my pins are all kind of eroded. One of the things that this kit doesn't come with is that bolt that goes in here to hold on to the springs. So I'll have to transfer that from the old cover to this new one. Okay, to put this on, you just need a 12mm socket. A deep well is probably the best way to go. And then just get that tightened in there. And you don't really want it too tight, just hand tight is fine. Before we mount the pads, it's always good to get this brake cable in because the pads will go over that. The armature in there as well before we attempt the pads, because you can see this armature is held on by the pad and it needs to go in here. So we need to take that off anyways to get to the new pad in there. I've been trying my best to put this piece onto the brake cable, and what I'm finding out is these cables are jammed. And let me show you what it's like on the other side, on the driver's side, so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, this is the driver's side parking brake cable rear, not the one that goes from the pedal to the center of the vehicle, but from the center of the vehicle back to the wheel. This is the connection point right here to that center hub. You basically put this through a channel and it holds to pull. When you press on the e-brake, it will pull on this cable like so. And you can see the old one, I can't pull it, I can't even move it. And the spring is compressed. There's no way I can compress this spring enough to put that lever on it. So the new cable has all the proper connectors and stuff, except I have to transfer that bracket over to the new cable. And I ended up going with the DORMAN model for, this one is for the driver's side or left, and they have an L on the bracket so that you know it's for the left. That's what I'm reduced to doing right now, so I'm going to change out this cable, both sides, and then proceed to, with the job. I'll just show you how to put the driver's side on, and it's basically the same for the passenger side. You got to make sure you do the routing right. And I'll put all this in the description below as well. The area where the old cable failed was probably due to water intrusion into this area and seizing the cable. And then you cannot get enough movement to put on the bracket, the lever. So what I'm going to do is spray liquid in here. I'm going to put a anti-seize inside of here and around here when I install this, so that'll prevent water intrusion and causing this issue in the future. So I'll put that a lubricant in here to make sure that it stays well. And as you know, my lubricant of choice for something like this is the Cleanse Oil Marine and Tactical, because it will withstand salt water and water intrusion. So I'll spray this on the cable, and then, like I said, put anti-seize on the other portion of the of that end piece right there. Okay guys, it's time to install that cable. As you can see here, this is coming from the pedal to this area, and you have a little groove for this to go into. So it will go in like this and over. This cable is supposed to go underneath this cover, so get that started. All right, after you get this connected, make sure you get the cable routed underneath this cover for the fuel tank. And then this nub needs to come into here, and this bolt needs to go in. So you just get that started by hand. You can see that you do the same thing with the other side. There's a lot of slack in here. So now we have this hanging. That is only hand tight right now, so I'll just drive it home with this. All right, that should be good enough. And then you'll have to come over to here. There's usually a stud, but I had to grind it out so I could put a tapped screw in there so that I could put this bracket on. That stud broke and I couldn't do anything else, so I'll put that in next. And then you just keep going down along the way and connecting it. Okay, so now we have this point here where the stud used to be. I had to put a screw in, and then it twists around right there to that point. That's how it was before, so we're going to follow the proper routing. And then the next cable is that one where this will go in, and I'll put that in next here. And again, it says L on that bracket for left side, so this will come alongside the tank and then go into here. And this is a 12 millimeter bolt, so you just try to situate it and get it in. There we go, hand snug. Then this one will go in here, like so. And that's back to a 10 millimeter. Don't go too tight because everything is a little rusty, and that's why I can't get my socket back. But we can spray all this down and put a sealer on it. Now this bracket goes onto the inside. So this bracket will come along and go in here. It slips around to make it come in and conform. There we go. And then we will put the nuts on it, and this is the proper direction. So again, these are 10 millimeter nuts. Okay, once you have that bracket on, it'll be easier to now move this cable and get it through this hole right here. There we go. And then get those two 10 millimeter bolts in. Okay guys, now that the cable is in, you can see I can move that spring back real easy to be able to put on this bracket. Okay, so now I should be able to put this brake lever on for the actuation, which when it gets pulled will actuate the brake pads. So I can push this back by hand now, versus before I couldn't even move the cable or the spring back. Look at that, how easy that was. Okay, first thing you want to do is get a lot of this anti-seize on the right spots. So there's these pads that you can put the anti-seize on, and a little bit goes a long way, guys. Don't overdo it. So 2 pads up here, 2 pads on either side, and then 1 longer pad at the bottom here. And that would do it. That's according to it, to what's needed. You could also put it right here, and that's for where the shoes sit and rotate. That's not going to hurt anything. So those are the areas that I usually put the anti-seize on. Okay guys, instead of waiting on parts to come, I went to my local Napa place to get this hardware kit 3171, and it includes all the hardware for 2 sides for the parking brake. And then I ended up getting the remand pads, or yes, the remand shoes. As you can see here, what they do is they reuse the steel backing from previous, and then they put brand new material on it, and it is an organic material, and it was reasonably priced, and it comes with the pin as needed for either side, and they were only around $30 that way with AAA discount of 10%. So I'm going to end up using these. I couldn't wait 4 days. I just want to get this job done, so I went to Napa. And they have good stuff. So for those of you who used to work on cars back in the 80s, this was a common thing where you would take off the brake shoes and then send them in, and they would get remanded. Okay, I went online and got this information as to how the brake shoes go on. And you could see they definitely lay out where you put your anti-seize on those pads. The pins, now this would be the rear of the vehicle where the caliper comes in, that cutout like this. And then how all these parts will go on. You can see the adjuster too, the screw part points to the rear, and then where all these springs are. Another thing to remember is this tensioner spring at the bottom goes behind the adjuster and also acts to stop it from rotating. So you always hear it clicking against it. And basically this is all you'll need here. So again, straight pin to the front, crooked pin to the rear so that it can give space for that lever to actuate this guy right here. And the spring is on the front of that shoe strut. All right, so we know all this information now, and we'll start putting it together that way. Here are the proper shoes. This is with the pin that will take the adjuster on there. And then this is the front shoe. So they will go right in here. I'm not going to put them on right now because there is all that anti-seize, and I don't want to make a mess right now. So first we have to put the pin onto this here, and then put the proper clip so that it's hinging properly. Okay, as you can see, when this kind of transposes itself onto the vehicle, they have to go this way together, so the half moons, if you will, line up. But I have it this way so you could better see what I'm doing. I put a little anti-seize there. I'm going to put this on, and then what you would need is this spring washer out of that package, and that would go here and compress, and then slide this guy into here. So I'm using a milk carton. It's not the strongest to do this, but it will work. And another thing you could use to help you is to get one of these pliers that you can use to maneuver this pin. All right, I got it started just like this, and then I'm going to drive it home. There we go. And then once that's on, you could take a pair of these flat pliers and then just bring those two ends together. Just make sure they come together really well so that it doesn't come apart. There we go. And that's going to stay there in the back side and should actuate really nicely. All right, so that's out of the way. Now we'll just get the bottom springs together so that these shoes will stay together, and then we'll be able to start putting the pins through. Okay, so this little spring goes on the back, and I'll show it on this pad here. It'll go on the back like this, and it'll go on the back of this one as well. There we go. And then you could put that around and make sure they come together. Okay, next we're going to put these pins through. This one goes in the back, like so, and just kind of wiggle it in. There we go, guys. I got the pin in here. I had to pull it through. So next we'll need these with the clip here. They go into the hole in here, and then the pin goes through them, and it will sit this way so that the spring rests on it. These are the spring seats. Okay, put the spring seat on. This little tab goes into the hole, then the spring, and then you have the little retaining clip for the spring. You just have to line up the space here and then twist it till it makes a 90. And you should be able to do it with your fingers. So it could seat well. There you go. And then that holds that side. Then the other side, you do the same. You make sure the pin is straight, going through that slot. All right, guys, we got her. All right, then we got to make sure these go in. There we go. Next part, this bracket. The spring goes towards the front, and it goes into here. So we just sneak it in, like so. Okay. Before we put those top springs in. Okay. Then we need the adjuster at the bottom. So the adjuster should sit with the screws to the back and the floater to the front. So here's the screw part. It goes to the back. and then the floater to the front. But we should put some anti-seize in here because you don't want this to seize up on both ends here. So just a little bit goes a long way. They do give you white lithium grease with it, but I like to use anti-seize. Just a little dab here and a little dab on the other end. And then just thread that in. Go ahead and thread it in all the way just to make life easy for now. Okay, and then put this guy in here. And that rides in the groove between. Okay, and now to put the adjuster in. Again, it will go into here. I've got it closed up all the way. There. So we've got all the other springs in. Now we've got to put the springs that hook onto here. So both of these springs are the same. They hook onto here and then they hook onto this area. There we go. That needs to go in the back of there. There we go. So everything is where it should be. We have nothing on the pads. Check to make sure there's no anti-seize on the pads. We'll have to wash those out. So guys, this is what it's looking like. Those springs hooked into these areas. Sorry about the lighting. It is terrible outside. So you can see there's a little area in the pad where that hooks onto and comes in. The springs here and here are in place. All right guys, next we're going to take the rotor. After you've made sure nothing is hitting, you'd want to put some anti-seize on here so that you could take this off later, just on this face here, like that. And that'll ensure that you can take the rotors on and off easier in the future. And then there is a hole in, an inspection hole in the rotor, which also helps you adjust the tensioner for the parking brakes, so that you want to make sure that aligns with one of these holes. But before we put it on, you should hit this with brake parts cleaner and then wipe it down to get any oils off. So just wipe the surface down with some brake parts cleaner. Make sure there's no fingerprints on that, and then again line up that hole with one of these holes so that you could set the adjuster. There we go. Now you should have no drag whatsoever. You see, you can hear them just dragging a little bit. But then you put it down here and then you can turn the adjuster. And then what you do is once you find the teeth, you turn them up. There we go, you can hear it moving. And you just do it till you get resistance on here. Make sure it's seated properly. And you should start feeling resistance against that screw once the pads push. There we go. It's starting to drag a little. Okay, it's telling me that it's tight, which it is. Now it's not turning anymore, so we'll back it off, which is go from the top down. And it's probably going to take about 3 to 4 turns, flats on here. Okay, there we go. That's going to be just right for adjustment. Now we can clean all of this off. I ordered new plugs that are going to go in this inspection hole because I don't want water to get in there. Getting ready to put the pads in, so I spent a lot of time cleaning this old bracket because it holds the pads in there. And what I ended up doing is I ended up cleaning the inside of those holes with this 9mm bore cleaner. It's usually used for guns. I just put it on the end of a drill and then work it in and out with some brake parts cleaner, and then that'll usually clean them very well. There was a lot of rust around here, so I ended up just using a little grinding bit on here to get all that rust off with this little Dremel tool. They're pretty handy. And then just kind of worked it around, and then used a brush to just kind of finish cleaning all this stuff. Now it's ready for the pads. So one of the things I like to use is a good ceramic high performance synthetic brake lube, and then change out all the rubber covers here, and then I'm also going to go with new pins. This bracket is for the driver's side, and then when you install it, this will be the leading edge, this will be the lagging edge. So what I like to do is put lubricant in these grooves so that these springs fit in there properly. I don't put lubricant where these springs are so that everything keeps moving. The lubricant will kind of slow these down or get debris. And then I will lube up the pins and put them after I put the rubber seals on. I sometimes do not put the rubber end to the lower pin because I've had those hang up before, and because these bores are older and they have pitting in them, I think I'm going to forego that. But definitely if you got a new bracket, put that rubber piece in because it does avoid shuttering of the pads and has them always push out. It does aid in pushing everything out because of the little air pocket in there. So first thing I'm going to do is get some of this lubricant and then just put it into these grooves, and then also on here like so. And then I can get these shims in, or not shims but springs in. So like this. And there's these tabs here, and then it fits in, so you have to kind of take your time getting these in. And then make sure they seat all the way so that the pads go in nice and easy. Okay. And then this one will be on the leading edge. I've put it to the bottom. And when it's nice and clean, they go in real easy. All right. Next, I'm going to put these rubber boots in. And I like to put some lube inside of these, but first I'm going to check the fit. I'll probably do this without gloves on because it's hard to do them with gloves on to stretch it. But as you can see, the smaller end is for the pin. This is supposed to go over here. That is a snug fit. Yep, once they're on, they're good. So we'll get these on, and then I'll just fill them up with grease while they're on. That way I know they're on well. And just give them a tug to make sure they're not going to come off. Next, we'll just fill them up with a little bit of grease to make sure that when the pins go in, they are greased on the sides. All that grease will also get on the pins. So just try to get some in there. Okay. So okay. So thankfully with the AKEBONOs, the pads are the same on both sides with this one, so they come wrapped nicely so they don't bang around. And then again, we have to think about how the wheel is turning. This is the driver's side. So we want these feelers to be on the leading edge or the first edge as it comes around. So these pads will go in there like so, and that means that these feelers will go on like this. So they just snap in for this one, and this one on this side will be like so, and that means the feeler will go on this side here. And what happens is as this wears down and the wheel and the rotor goes by, it will start to squeal, so you know that, hey, you got to replace these. And then twist it over and up. And just, it's okay to keep them at the furthest opening so that the rotor fits in here. And then we'll do this one again. Come in a little bit sideways like this. And then twist to get it up in there and over. Now this caliper carrier is ready to go right in, and we can spray this with brake parts cleaner, the pads, to make sure nothing is on them. But we'll bolt this in, and then we can put our caliper on, and everything should go together well. I already expanded the caliper, so it should fit right over this. If it doesn't, I'll have to squeeze these right up against the rotor anyways before putting it together. Alright guys, now we have the bracket loaded, and there's the two bolts that have to go through it. And where it goes, you can see these two ears here behind the rotor that are through holes, and the bracket goes in through that. So now you can see I just hand started these bolts through here. Again, there's through holes for these ears on the knuckle, and then the carrier go through there. I did not squeeze the pads together so that they would fit over the rotor properly. But now I'll torque these to 60 foot-pounds, and we can then put the caliper on. Okay, I got these snug, so now it's time to torque the nuts to 60 foot-pounds. It's a 17 millimeter. All right, that's 60 foot-pounds as well. So now we can squeeze these pads together around the rotor and just make sure everything rotates here. And now we'll put this caliper on. And the piston is in the back. It's already been pushed in with the tool. So basically I use this tool right here to push the piston back and get it prepped so it slides over here. Now we're just going to lubricate the pins. Again, the correct position for these pins is this one to the bottom. Usually you have the rubber end on there. I am not going to put on the rubber end because, again, I found a little pitting in there. I cleaned it up the best I could, but keeping it without that will prevent a hang up. And then your pads will wear kind of sideways. And then this pin goes to the top. Okay, so then, as you can see, everything went on easily. Right there. The best way to lubricate them is to not use a gob of lubrication. You just put it on like this so. Don't put it on the end because that will not allow the pin to properly seat in there. So just get it all over the outside here, and again this one to the top. There we go. And this one to the bottom. Now you want to move this back and forth and make sure that these rubber boots are basically on the pin and not, there's no gap, so you just look in there and make sure that they're captured by the pin. You don't want any gaps on there. So as they go back and forth, that's great. We haven't used the hydraulic pressure to compress that piston yet. So right there, that is a completed job. Once we press the brake pedal 2-3 times, it will be the right position. Just spray this with brake parts cleaner, get everything off. And again, the drag you hear is a little bit of the drum brakes that we did, and now we've got these new pads on there. All right, guys, now we'll torque these pins to 32 foot-pounds. These are 14 millimeter. There's 32 on that one. Okay, so now last but not least, guys, get those hole plugs that go into here. It'll prevent moisture from coming in for that inspection plug. Here's the part number. They're a dealer only part. I'll put a description in the description below as to where I got them. It's just a matter of grabbing it and plugging it in.
There you go. Now you can seal out moisture. All right, guys, I hope you found this informative. We changed out the rear bearings, had to change out the dust cover, put in new brakes while we were at it for the drum brakes, new e-brake or parking brake cables. I'm going to split some of this up into separate videos as well so that you may have all that information. But I hope you enjoyed this content, found it informative and learned something. Please comment, subscribe, and of course give us that thumbs up to keep the algorithms going. All right, just be handy.